All right, so they're watching. All right, this is what happens when you're streaming. We're live now. All right, I'm going to answer that question in 2 seconds. All right, for those who are live, y'all turn around and wave at these folk in the camera. Tell them what's up on tonight, who are watching us from the quiet comforts of their homes on tonight. You know, this is one of those things where you almost like what TNT was back in the days before the pandemic and now, but I'm grateful for all of you. So give yourselves a hand for being here on tonight. I told you all this week that I had some I don't know how I worded it Sunday, some special something. Well, this is something special right here. Here are our two guests tonight who are no strangers. This is the surprise, Reverend Alicia Gordon, who I've known since last week. And yeah, we just met. And then, honestly, Alicia was was a sister, beloved. And then my best friend, if not, he's definitely my best friend. He might be the best friend. I got a couple best friends. And this man right here, we've known each other for, man, it's deep. This year is 30 years. 1994. And I came in 93, we met in 94. Yeah. Oh, 30 years. Brother, we up there. But this is, these are my people, man. And those of you who watch Empowering Conversations know that when we get together, we act fool. And so I'm grateful for that. Now, the special treat was, I said to them, I was going to say something about Sunday sermon a little bit, because this is typically a conversation about that. And so I'm going to hold off on that, because I want to get into this. Now, and part of the reason why they're here is because I wanted us to kind of give you like a kind of taste of what's going to happen November 5th. Now, what I'm hoping is that we spread the word. November 5th, we know is election night, but it's also our live, in-person election night coverage from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. that night, all right? So I need to make sure you are in the building. The last time we did this was 2008. We were here in this building, and this place was packed 2008 on election night. Remember that, Mary? And it was an amazing night, not only because Barack Obama was elected, but who was here that night in Harlem that night? Let me see the hands. Who in Harlem that night? And who wasn't in Harlem? Wasn't even in New York City? Put them hands up. That night in the streets of Harlem was historic. You heard literally screaming and cheering and people on the streets. You heard fireworks going off. Like, it was an electric. And that night here, the New York Times heard that we were doing the coverage, and then they had the New York Times folk was in here. I never forget, if you saw the New York Times that the next day, there was this big picture of Ruthie. Y'all remember that picture? Sitting right over here with her mouth wide open, screaming, and it was amazing. And that night was powerful because we had members of the church. I remember Sister Hill, people who had lived through the South, grew up in segregation, sharing their stories that night as we sat on the eve of the first black president. And I remember one of the people, Sister Evelyn Hill, who was a leader in the Wilmington race riots in the 60s when it took place. And so it was just a powerful night. Election night, we're going to have, of course, the three of us talking, and then we'll have two guests that night. And it's going to be special. We have a couple of videos we're going to be playing. It's going to be a great night. But we realize that more than likely by 11 o'clock, we probably won't know who's present. Now, we end the program at 11, but I'm going to stick around as long as I can until they put me out, which I don't know they're going to do. But I think it's a very interesting dynamic when we're doing this on election night, because in that night when you come, you have to come through the side entrance that night. We're going to do something that we've never done here. Is Dawn gone already? Yeah, she just left. We're going to do something we've never done, which is actually we're going to have some snacks in the sanctuary. And I'll tell you why. I know, we in trouble. Say, ooh. So that night, we plan on having two breaks, one at 8:30 and one at, 9:40? 9:45. 2 breaks for us to kind of get up and stretch and get some snacks. We're going to have some very limited snacks. So I don't think we're going to be here eating food that you can mess up the sanctuary. We're going to have some nutritional bars and small bottles of water. And the reason why we have to do that in the sanctuary, which we've never done, so don't do that on Tuesday, November 5th, then you're going to roll in here on Sunday with your little food. You're already sneaking. See, like right there. See, we caught her. We come right there with the one. But here's the thing. The reason why we have to do that and the reason why that night you're going to come and decide is because this is powerful. We're going to have election night coverage while polling is going on in the church. So this is a polling site, has been a polling site. That night is a polling site. And so we got to keep these sanctuary doors closed because we can't influence people who are coming to vote. Well, we won't, because we won't be pushing any candidate we'll be talking about. We won't be pushing any candidate we'll be talking about. Huh? Well, you can say it, but I can't stop you from expressing how you feel about the election. And so that night will be, I'm praying it's a historic night. It may have to be a historic 3 or 4 days until we get this final count. But I'm praying it gives us an insight into something that can be powerful and transformative. One way or the other, we're going to be crying either way. It's going to be tears of joy or tears of pain. Tears going to be flowing that night. I'm going to be crying. One way. You know, the direction going to determine that. And I think it's good. We've been having some amazing production meetings with Brother Ian and John Leslie getting ready for that night. So first of all, let me ask y'all a question. Are those chairs comfortable? Okay, because they made a big deal about having comfortable chairs on election night. So I can make sure they're comfortable and they're happy with the chairs. These may not be the chairs, but good. So let me ask you a question. You might bring a pillow. Huh? Yes. So you want to say that? Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. So those who are watching online, as always, feel free to ask questions online. Also, as you came in, you know, FCBC, Reverend Leisha was saying, FCBC is like the merch store for life, right? We keep merch going, right? So as you walked in tonight, you saw the voting merch. So that means that you go ahead and, let me be honest with you. We the merch church. And let me tell you, we never had a good idea that we can't convert to a T-shirt. And I'm going to tell you, if you've been at FCBC, let me say, for the staff, I've been here 20 years. And I give my stuff away every 2 years, because there's so much merch that we have here. But this merch out there is for Voter Empowerment Sunday, which is November 3rd. We want to make sure we get ready. Some of you have already done early voting, and I'm grateful for that. Here you go. Go ahead with your tea. And voice of the empowered. That's what it comes. So it's a nice shirt. And thank you, Samantha. We really appreciate your patronizing our business. And so yeah, we're excited about that night. And tonight, we want to just have a brief kind of precursor to November 5th conversation. And I think that it's an important one. Some people come and say, you know, well, I came for Bible study. Well, I will say I agree with you. I've been doing that here for 20 years. But we actually don't call it Bible study at FCBC. So those of you, now we do study the Bible, because, you know, you got to be careful when you say stuff now. Somebody's going to run out here saying, I'm leaving because they don't talk about the word. I knew he was a heathen. But before I say that, who's here for the first time tonight? Raise your hand. Let me see. First time in the building. Good. I see y'all. Good. Well, welcome. So what we call our Bible study is TNT, which is Tuesday Night Transformation, because what we believe is that every time we come together in this format, it is a transformative experience. I take teaching seriously, and I take this aspect of what we do seriously, but it is just that. It is a transformative night. Because of the critical nature of what we are facing, there are times when these conversations, and if you've been here any amount of time, these conversations have mainly about Scripture and Bible. But every now and again, we have broader conversations. The reason why is because I'm one of those people, and I think my friends here would agree, that there was a time in our culture where the church was at the center of community, spiritually, socially, politically. It was the only safe space we had, and the place where we could fully engage and feel free to do so. So that is why historically our churches have been at the heart of so much. You hear people say, don't mix, you don't mix politics and religion. But the thing is, it's not necessarily how you mix politics and religion. It is how your faith influences how you live and lead your life. And what we have seen historically in this country is a hijacking of that conversation, a hijacking of this kind of engagement between politics and religion, and mainly how it manifests itself can be in kind of right-wing, evangelical, Christian nationalism. That narrative dominates so much, where we see persons who claim to be people of faith and Christian, but the narrative in the media is often shaped by a particular framing of Christianity that I think and believe is actually antithetical to the teachings of Jesus. There's a way that for me, my religion, my faith informs my politics, and not to say, well, if you're not a Christian, I can't, nominate you, because in this country, there's no religious criteria for public office. But there's a particular way that it influences, and that influence is based, again, on the teachings of Jesus. It's quite clear for me personally. There's going to be no candidate whose work or politics is going to be directly in alignment with my faith. But there is a certain vision, and that's what I want to talk about tonight. There's a certain vision for this country that is being put forth by two candidates. And what you have to decide is which vision is most in line with your feelings, your views politically, and sometimes for me, my faith. I'll give you an example. Years ago in 2013, in August of 2013, I was in Mexico for my 20th anniversary, and it was at a time, if you remember, many of you remember, I was getting ready to run for Congress here. And there was a particular gentleman who really I viewed as a mentor and a friend by the name of Bill Lynch. Bill Lynch was a great friend of mine and a political juggernaut, not just in this city, not just in this country, but in the world, actually. He was a political guru, and he was actually first deputy mayor under David Dinkins. But he actually was the campaign manager for David Dinkins and helped get the first African American to be mayor of New York City. He and I built a friendship because when we were renovating this church, we didn't stay in this building because all the dust and everything, at the time, my medical issues. And so we were using space on the third floor of Bill Lynch's building. And he and I built a rapport. And I remember in 2012, I asked him after the Democratic primary for Congress here in this district. I said to him, Bill, what do you think about me running for Congress? Now, Bill had run Charlie Rangel's campaigns forever. And he had just finished the campaign with Charlie. And so I just went to him. I said, what do you think about me running for Congress? And his words to me that day were, he said, it's doable, just like that. And then he would say to me, so, every morning when you come to work, just stop by my office. Let's have a conversation. And we would just talk. We would talk. And then he was on dialysis, but his dialysis was at home. And so on some Mondays, I would go to his house, and we would sit there and watch MSNBC and talk politics for hours, right? So I never forget, in April of 2013, he called me one day and asked me, could I come to his house? And I get to the house, and he was being funny, but not funny. He said, Rev, I might need to borrow some of your security from the church. So I said, for what? He said, well, I just got off the phone with Congressman Rangel and told him that I'm running your campaign in 2014. And I said, wait a minute. Now, I knew what it cost to get Bill Lynch to run the campaign. I said, well, I ain't got no money. And he said, don't worry about money. We'll raise the money. I said, well, I said, so what did the congressman say? So I'm giving y'all some inside stuff. I never really told this story in public before. And so he said the congressman asked him, was he doing it because because he liked the reverend or because the reverend had, hired him. And he said to the congressman, he said, well, he hired me. Now, that was a lie, but I said, well, I didn't hire you, Bill. He said, no, but I had to say that so he knew that it was serious. So at that moment, the word starts spreading. Bill is taking me different places, and a lot is happening very fast. And it culminated in a meeting in the state office building. I'll just leave it. There was a meeting where there were some people who weren't pleased about Bill and I doing this, but they had to concede that it was difficult to beat me with Bill running my campaign. So all things are moving. This is April of 2013, and things are happening. August, I go to Mexico. It was during that week that Bill Lynch died, in August. Before I left to go to Mexico, I went to see him in the hospital because he often sometimes would have infections after dialysis. And so he had an infection. So I went that Saturday before I left, and we were sitting there talking about Don Lemon. You remember, because the comments he made about people in Harlem with the guys with the pants sagging and all this stuff. And I ain't gonna tell you what Bill said, but it was very colorful language he used to describe that. And I left, and I get a call. I go to breakfast on the morning of August 9th, and I get back, and my phone is like lit up. And I called my assistant at the time, was Malika Thomas, and I'm seeing all these missed calls and all these, and I don't look at Amy. I call her, and she's on the phone, and I said, well, what happened? She said, Bill just died. Shell-shocked, right? And I was like, wow. And my decision to run at that moment wasn't made then, because I was like, I'm out. Not because I didn't want, because Bill and I had grown very close. And it was just a complicated moment. He became more than just a friend to me in many ways. And what happened is, I will share the story, at his funeral, which was at Riverside Church. And I did the eulogy, and it was tough to come up. Well, speaking, you had Bill Clinton speaking, Hillary Clinton speaking, you had all these people speaking. After, a particular person came to me and said to me that they were now going to run again because they didn't think I could win without Bill. The reason why I ran, because I thought that was just classless at a funeral to say this. And that's why I ran. Knowing that at that point, I watched everyone in the unions and everybody who was supporting me turn around and not support, which I know how politics is. That never bothered me. But then, when the campaign was over, because many people thought I was running, Alicia, just to get my name out there, it was really a pay homage to Bill. And I was giving everything I had. After the campaign, Congressman Rangel's campaign manager wanted to take me to breakfast. And he said, Rev, why'd you stay in the race? We all thought you were going to drop out and all this stuff. I said, you really want to know why I stayed in the race? He said, yeah. And he said, and I said to him, and I said, I wanted y'all to remember what a free N-word looked like. I said, because y'all ain't seen a free one in a long time around here. That's a whole nother conversation. But politics is something that is critical to our communities. And for me, again, my political decisions are often informed by faith. Now, why did I bring that story up? August 9th, when I find out Bill died, I'm in Mexico, I decided to do something crazy. Here's what I did. At that time, Bill de Blasio was running for mayor, and he was like 4th or 5th in the polls. And so in Mexico, I called Bill, and I said, I just want to call and let you know I'm going to endorse you for mayor. He was like, really? I said, yeah. At that time, no major black church had supported him. And he asked me why. And I said, well, in part because of my faith. He said, in what way? I said, because you have been the only candidate to talk about and include poor people in your conversation. Nobody talked about. We hear these conversations even now, middle class men, and I get economically why it's important, but there's a large segment of this country that gets overlooked and underserved. And there are many people who live in poverty in this country, and no one really talks about that. And so, in part, right, part of my faith is how do we stand in solidarity and support those who are the most vulnerable in our culture? That's how it translates to me. How do we protect those who are the most vulnerable? What are the social safety net programs we have in place? And when you have candidates who are ready to get rid of social safety net programs and punish the poor, that's problematic for me, all right? So that, to me, for me, is how my faith helps. That's one way, how it informs my political decisions. I'm going to give you this story, and then I'm going to kick it off to my friends here and ask them, so get ready, because I want you to share why this season, this election cycle is important. And many of you know, every Tuesday I co-host Keeping It Real with Reverend Al Sharpton. And today I shared this story with Alicia. I didn't tell you yet. During this election season, in the Tuesdays, I hear some of the most ridiculous things come out of the mouths of some of our people. I'm talking about uninformed ignorance. Today, a man called in from San Francisco and says, I'm going to say something. I know you guys are not going to like it. It won't be popular. And he said, today, I voted early and voted for Jill Stein. He's a brother, a black man. He was a law enforcement. So I voted for Jill Stein. And we said, why? And I watched Reverend Sharpton, you know, in a quick way, dismantle this man. And I know when it was so quick that when he finished, I know he wished he could go back and change his vote. Because it was so quick and decisive. And I just sat back and I ain't nothing I had to add to this. He said, why you vote for Jill Stein? He said, well, I'm not going to vote for Kamala Harris. He said, because when she was AG, the state AG, and listen to this, in California, and she pushed the criminalization of truancy among young people. She pushed this, and she was out there leading this. Now, I just sat there, because I know, and so Reverend Sharpton said, so let me ask you a question. He said, your vote is your vote. But the criminalization of truancy in California, he said, was that passed by the state legislature? He said, yes. Okay. Passed by the state legislature. And as Attorney General of the state, did she have to enforce this? Well, yes. So hold on. So let me understand this. So it was passed by the state legislature. The Attorney General must enforce this because it was passed in the law by the state. And you now decide to vote for Jill Stein because Kamala Harris is doing her job. He said, and the dude was quiet. He says, let me ask you a question. What's Jill Stein's policy on truancy? Well, I don't know. Exactly. She has none on that matter in California. But you made a decision to vote for somebody who you don't know their policy because you believe that she was pushing something that as AG she had to uphold because it was law in the state of California. That is the level of foolishness that we are seeing. And I got to give you this one. This is the second one I told her. Last Tuesday, I was on my way up to Connecticut, and we on the radio again. And it's not just ignorance that bothers me, because we all got our ignorant moments. It's when ignorance marries arrogance. When them two get married and come out of one mouth, it's terrifying. Now, I want to tell you, this man came on the radio show boldly and said it so authoritatively. He said, I'm calm, man. He said, because, in the 80s, Reagan brought heroin to the black community. And then Barack Obama, when he became president, reinforced it through Oxycontin. And nobody want to talk about this stuff. I'm like, nobody talking about it because it ain't true. So think about it. He said it like he just finished watching a TikTok conspiracy video. Think about it. He said it very, Strong and wrong. First of all, heroin existed before 1980s, brother. We in Harlem right now. 50s, 60s, 70s. But now the conspiracy theory, he linking Ronald Reagan to Barack Obama, and Ronald Reagan brought heroin into the black community. Now, I get the whole Iran, I get all that, but it wasn't heroin. Barack Obama, now he brought Oxycontin too. Like, brother, come on. But what I realized is, I said this a few weeks ago, or the last time we had, I think, in person. We all have this pocket computer. But we don't always use it for information gathering. We use it to reinforce false assumptions. We use it to play games. We invest more time in finding out the ratings on a doggone restaurant than political policies of people running for office. We want to look for Yelp. I ain't going there. They got 3.8 on their reviews. We make more informed decisions because of this for food choices than who's going to decide the future of this country. And it's insane to me. This is a critical election. This is more consequential and critical than 2016. Because for a few reasons. In 2016, people didn't know how Trump would be. You know? Well, when I say people, the mass, you're a New Yorker, you know what's up with Trump. But now, it ain't. You ever realize that Donald Trump be talking like somebody we ain't seen for 4 years do this before? You notice that? He don't talk like a person who we know what you did the first time you was here. And a lot of things you say he's gonna do, you didn't do. He's approaching this like he ain't never been the president before. This is deep. And he worked at McDonald's. Let me tell you why you knew that was staged. It was staged, we all know. Let me tell you something. If some of y'all cousins would have pulled up McDonald's and saw Donald Trump, they threw back the fish fillet and the fries. They had to stage that. Can you imagine? I'd have pulled up McDonald's like, what? Bruh, go ahead. I'd be like, anyway, Reverend Alicia, Dr. Maurice, thank y'all as always. But help us understand, and we're gonna do what we always do. We're gonna riff off of one another. This is an improvisational moment. But help us understand, and we can use, I think, inspired by our faith, inspired by where we are, why this election is so important in this season. Why is it so consequential? I start with Dr. Maurice. No, ladies first, I'm sorry. Reverend Alicia. Okay, she deferred, go ahead. I ain't gonna fight. Go ahead.
Good evening, everybody.
Reverend, don't worry. It's TNT. They know about delayed hours.
Okay. To the political and maybe / philosophical. The story you told about Brother Lynch made me think that all that some of us need is for somebody to believe in us. I heard him say that I heard Pastor say he decided that he mustered the courage to run for Congress because of the influence, and with the influence of Mr. Lynch. And it just strikes me that some of us just need that to go to the next level, whatever that is, in our own lives. And I think it's important that we understand that some of us are Lynch for other people. So there might be someone in your life who you have a positive view of, and who they have great talent, they have great potential, but they don't necessarily know that you believe in them. And I try to practice that especially with my graduate students. No, go back and do this again. I believe in you. And sometimes that's all that people need. Sometimes it's all our young people need, is to know that somebody believes in them. So I want to encourage you to do that. to be Lynch as much as be inspired by other Mr. Lynches.
Yes, Pastor.
Yes.
Come on.
But let's go to the political question, and I want to go back to the T-shirt. Voter empowerment, and I think if I can spend some time on the word empowerment, it might help answer the question of the evening. I think many people are under the illusion that we participate in the democratic process because we believe that the one we will vote for, should he or she win, will solve all of our problems. We believe that a vote for him or a vote for her means, if they win, that they are obliged to provide the silver bullet that will settle all of the political issues and the policy issues in the nation, in our state, in our community. But I want to suggest to you that what participating in the democratic process does is empower us, right? And it empowers us to help solve the political problems in our communities, in our state, in our nation, ourselves. That we have a leader, in this case we're talking about the presidency, that we identify a leader who will at least have the generosity, at least have the wherewithal to hear those who are now empowered with a voice to push and prod, to advocate and agitate in our interests. In this case, it is quite likely that one candidate will have to respect your voice. Another has already demonstrated what he thinks of your voice. And so what we're talking about is voting. We're not just talking about empowering you to vote. That's not why we're here, to empower you to vote alone, but we're trying to urge you to vote so you can be empowered, so that you can be part of whatever unfolds politically around us that will have an important effect on our day-to-day lives as community, as citizens, as members of this community, as citizens of this state, as citizens of this nation, as citizens of the globe, right? I think sometimes we only understand our political world. It gets as big as the nation and then it stops. But we're global citizens. And it means we have to have some concern for how our national policies and politics affect other people around the world whose circumstances we don't even know about. Because major network television and news doesn't pick up civil war in Africa, famine in Asia. It just doesn't do. You almost have to listen to BBC to know what's happening in the world, right? And yet we are citizens of the world as well. So I think I want to say that empowerment is a key word tonight, and I also want to offer one more key word, conviction. And by that I mean a lot of people have views, a lot of people watching videos, but I want to know what your convictions are, because views can be parroted. Views can be imitated, right? You can hear someone else's views and adopt that view for your own. But I want to know what your convictions are, what your principles are, what you feel in your gut that causes you to assume a certain position on a certain issue, right? I'm not concerned about a conspiracy theory. I'm not concerned about what you saw or heard on TikTok. I'm just not interested in that. I want to know what your political convictions are, and the degree to which you are committed to justice, the degree to which you are committed to inclusiveness, the degree to which you are committed to empowering the least empowered. Because our empowerment isn't just for us. It's for the folk pastor referred to earlier, right? Those who are struggling and stuck in poverty. And others who are, otherwise least empowered among us. What are your convictions about how the aged live? What are your convictions about immigration? How do you view the stranger, the immigrant? I'll stop there. I think we're talking about competing visions, one inclusive, one exclusive, one that's attentive to your voice, your convictions, the other that's dismissive of your voice, your convictions. That's where I stand. What do you think?
You know, we've been kind of tossing around this language in our planning for the 5th about vision. And, vision in the most biological way is something that you're born with, I should say it's a biological thing. But vision is also impacted by environment, right? As you see, I wear glasses. And I remember, and so does my daughter, and I remember my daughter was small, maybe 1st, 2nd grade, and she would go to school. She was, great student, and she would come home talking about how she couldn't see the board, and I'm like, girl, you can see that board, you just need to sit closer. So she ends up moving closer to the thing. She didn't have glasses at the time. She moves closer to the thing, and she's still like coming home talking about how she can't see. And this probably went on for an entire school year. So I go and take her for, 5, 6-year-old, 7-year-old checkup. The doctor does the vision test, and what they say that baby can't see. That baby need glasses. And I have horrible vision. I can't see, is a blur. Her father wears glasses, right? So that is a biological thing that genetically that she was likely to be predisposed to, but being in an environment in which she was without what she needed to correct her lenses, we also imagine further damaged her vision, right? And now the baby. Right? Because we know that when you have small children and they get their early eye checkups and they tell you very early, oh, there's something happening here, what do? We put lenses on because the hope is that whatever is happening biologically can be adjusted by giving the kind of corrective lenses necessary to help the child to biologically adjust itself so you're no longer reliant on the apparatus. So when we're talking about 2 visions for this country, when we're talking about the genetic, biological vision by which people from the soil of Africa have come to this country, we can run the entire gamut and the ways in which vision has often been casted as a prophetic tool, as a salvific tool, as a way to see forward into a future where there was nothing but darkness and pain and suffering, right? The very existence of our very beings in this country is a direct result of being able to have biological, genetic, divine vision. And even when they said, baby, you ain't seeing the way that you're supposed to see, we took whatever apparatus they gave us, right? To get clearer about the divine vision for our lives, not only for our lives, but for our children, and for our children's children, and for our children's children's children. But there's also a group, a vision, that some may argue that the skewedness, the astigmatism of the way in which people are seeing our humanity and our being in this world is skewed by, some would argue, a biological, genetic disposition to do and be hateful. Right? And so when we talk about this two visions and the ways in which voting and using our empowerment, right, to the kind of thread, because I love what you said about voting empowerment and how the empowerment is an embedded part, a thread almost, of the outcomes of making the decision to know that the visions by which you have been casted for yourself, whether it's biologically or through an apparatus, has to be a vision that is also understanding that the role that we have when we vote empowers us to do what the powers that be may not be ready, capacity to, or want to do. And so that is my offering and not a solution or not a 3-point, step about how things should go. But I hope that it is a way in which we open up our eyes and our minds of how we think about and how we talk about what is the vision. Not only what is the vision that we have, but let's look at whether or not mama could see. And daddy could see, and grandma and nana and all the folks on the maternal, let's look at whether or not they could see, right? Because remember my little baby Asher, she was in the 1st grade. I was like, girl, you can see just fine, as if me and her daddy didn't already wear glasses. Right? There should have been a knowing. Right. Because the evidence was already there. But for whatever reason, in my 25-year-old self, I was just a baby, But biological in both environment, right? And so that is my offering in which we want to have not only this conversation tonight, but also on the 5th and over the next 14 days. What is the vision that you have? And in this vision that you are hearing casted into the world, whether it's through social media or the news or the radio, let's look at the lineage first, whether or not the people got good vision in the first place. And then let's look at the apparatus by which they are trying to correct the proverbial and metaphorical vision. That's all I got.
I've been around Alicia a long time, and I hate how she kind of folksy, just breaks you to pieces and be like, that's all I got. Let me say this. I want to say, because this is what we do normally. Something you said, and this goes to what you said in linking it. I told about that day in April of 2013 when Bill Lynch told me to come to his house and said he wanted to run my campaign. I asked him, I said, why? Why do you want to help me get to Congress? His first words, he said, well, this is about my grandchildren. He said, Rev, I've been doing this for a long time. I know politics. He said, if you don't win this, Harlem will lose political power. He was a prophet. He was a prophet. But his vision was not selfish. He was thinking about his grandchildren down the road. Because decisions we make in this kind of political climate are not about you. It's bigger than you. It is down the road because, see, let me give you an example. There were people in 2016, I don't like Hillary. That ain't the issue, whether you like somebody. I know some demons who are likable. It's not about likability. This is about down the road, right? What would happen? I'm sure there are some people, and I'm going to just say this, women, for example, who may have voted a certain way in 16, but didn't see that access to care for them would get destroyed and trampled on. You understand? Because we don't always think of the consequences of our choices down the road. People don't understand because we don't do a good job of connecting dots, right? Because we say things like, I heard somebody on TV being interviewed, well, I'm not going to vote because, it ain't going to make a difference in how things turn out, right? Things going to be the same no matter what. And I heard that, I said, well, things ain't the same in this country. They do change because of decisions. Conversations around women's reproductive rights. The conversation has changed. Talking about access to some elite schools because of affirmative action in higher education. Things have changed. There's consequences. Things have changed and are changed. Whole lot of folks, y'all might have some friends in here who, boy, around 2020, had some good DEI positions. And those positions are being eliminated, gone. Things change. Your votes have consequences. And we don't think about that. And it can't just be for the consequence you think right now. It's down the road. And I'll give another anecdote for you to react to, a story. I was watching a clip from Fox News. Now, some people I know watch Fox News, not because they like it. Well, I need to know what the other side thinking. I said, you don't need to do that. Just think the opposite of what you think. I don't need to watch Fox News to give them no ratings to know what they're thinking. Whatever you think, the opposite is what they're thinking. Okay? So just be clear. You ain't got to do that. But on Fox News, they had Trump on there last week or whatever. And, this is a friendly environment for Trump. But there was one, I don't know the man's name. It's a white guy. He has dark hair. He sits to the left usually when you're watching it. Well, to my right, I guess. And Trump was talking about getting rid of the Department of Education. Now, I want y'all to understand this. You said what? See, I want you to hear this. Because, see, we don't listen to this man. A lot of us not listening to what he's saying. He's talking about getting rid of these things and putting them under presidential control. He said he wants to get rid of the Department of Education. And when he does that, then he can determine how funding goes. So he basically said that we want our schools to teach what we believe. That's what he said. So this man on Fox said, well, I just want to say this. Now, I didn't expect this coming from Fox. So I don't know, because when Trump was saying all this stuff about funding, he was on the end looking kind of weird at Trump. And he said, so, Mr. President, you're saying this in certain areas that are more conservative. What about the liberal areas with education? He said, because there are some people who will say that slavery has to be taught because this country was built on the backs of slaves. And country built on the backs of slaves on stolen land from Native Americans. He said, so what do you say when that's the argument? He said, we just won't give them any money to teach that. I want you to understand. See, we making this about foolishness. You got people walking around and I'll come in doing, Trump gonna give us checks. Are you crazy? What check? Now, he's a masterful at marketing now. But the misinformation in our community, listen to what he's saying, right? All these federal agencies he wants to get rid of to consolidate power in the White House. That's a dictator. That's a tyrant.
But here's the other part of
Yeah.
that. Let's admit that he's not the most original politician.
No.
Right? He's not particularly visionary by himself,
There we go.
which means that if he has said it, somebody else, a group of somebody else's, have already written the script
For him to follow.
for him to follow. And that's precisely why so many on the other side of the aisle are supportive of him, because they are part of the cabal that has come up with this language and this decision to do away with the Department of Education. So in some ways, he is a mouthpiece for ideas, some of which are his, but many of which have their basis in groups that have been angling to do this for more than a generation. And now they see their opportunity. So this is what we are trying to bring to your attention. This is what we are trying to empower you to see and recognize. This isn't checkers. It's chess. And we gotta learn it.
And the problem is, it's the same board with two different games, and a whole lot of our folk are master checker players in the chess game. It don't work. It don't work. This is the thing. We talked about tonight, competing visions for America. There are actually two visions now, and they are diametrically opposed from one another. They're not even close. Myself and Maurice had a conversation one time, Alicia, when I was talking about Vice President Harris's thoughts about an opportunity economy. That's what she's calling her vision, an opportunity economy. And I was sitting there reading it, right? And I said, oh, there are a whole lot of folk who don't like this, who actually hate this, because our economy is not really about opportunity. It's opportunity and access for a very limited few. And the rest of y'all pull yourselves up by your own bootstraps. Right? But she's talking about expanding the possibility for people to not suffer. To minimize suffering in this country. Financial suffering. Increasing the child tax credit, increasing that, giving $25,000 to first-time home buyers. I mean, going on and on and on. This is an opportunity to expand, and people don't understand that. Because we don't want to be honest that sometimes we have aspirational goals attached to dangerous people. When I told somebody, I said, there's some folk in our community who want to support Trump. Well, why would they do that? The same reason they play the lottery. It's a hope that one day it'll be me. We don't want to have those conversations, right? So we want to make, we always are constantly, to have conversations. I want Alicia to talk about something that she brought up. If you watched our last empowering conversation, she said something that is important, because we're sitting here right now and we're talking about the presidential election. But the truth is, when that sister I heard say that nothing's going to change, the greatest transformation you experience in electoral politics is on a local level. Period. Period. And if you get fired up for presidential election, but you ignore city council, or don't know who's on your community board. I got some community board folk in here right now, community board 10 people. Yeah, don't woo. Now that's my sister. Yeah, I love it. Deacon Charles and Sharon. But you said something, and I want you to elaborate on this about local politics. I want to bring it home, because on that day, November 5th, you ain't just voting for president. All right? You said something in the empowering conversation that blew my mind, and it was so well put. You said that local politics is like a stopgap for sometimes the federal insanity. You didn't use the word, but I'm using it, federal insanity. Say more about why local politics is a stopgap.
Yeah, you know, the baseline here is that we know that all politics are local. And in the failed clutch of circumstance, we are in a federal government situation where Trump is president. The primary safeguard we have, even under his guise that states should be sovereign, in which they are, but in many ways in which he's trying to take some of these federal protections and say, well, let the state decide, right? The stopgap that we do have is our local government. So for example, if you live in a community, a city, a state, in which your governor, your judges, your sheriff, your city council, your school superintendents, all those people have a shared vision about how this particular community lives, loves, serves, does all the things. You are actually in a space in which there's this covering, because the people who make the decisions about how and when you get your medicine, the cost of gas in your state, the cost of living in your state, access to school lunch, whether or not your local school has the books and computers, all of those decisions are made on a local level. Whether or not your son or your daughter or your uncle gets a fair shot when they get a speeding ticket in court, whether or not grandma them and nana them have access to SNAP programs and Medicaid to keep her, all of those things are directly connected to the local politic. And so it's imperative. You know, even I think one of the, I think we have something on the New York Constitution that's on the ballot in November 5th. All of those things safeguard us in a way when the gap between our everyday lives and the federal government seems to get further and further and further away. And so it is a reminder that yes, the presidential, for all the reasons that we have named all year long are really important. But when you think about your day-to-day life, like I just went and picked up some prescriptions on Lenox Avenue, and honey, they was like, oh, $0. I was like, whoa. Appreciate it, right? You know, it is those types of different things that almost take some steam and some pressure off being human in this world and human in this country, to not have to think about how in the world am I gonna pay the rent and do the things. Well, if you're living in a city or in a state in which people and government, your local government is in tune and attuned to those things, that is really an important way for us to begin to think about our engagement in politics. That is not always just every 4 years. It's every 2. And in some cases, if there's a special election, it's every 1. Those are the ways in which we have to begin to deepen our education and our knowledge about why we do what we do and why we talk about it in these forums, but also thinking about how do we play chess, right? Because I think we saw it in 18. Trump gets elected in 16, and what happens in 18? We get the blue wave. We elect all these senators and Congress people, right? To really, on a state level, for those people to help shore them up, those communities up in a really meaningful way, to protect them from what was happening on the federal level. So that is a prime example of why our engagement outside of the every 4 years is important. Because it is the local person who's connected you and I know you. I'm like, child, I know she taking, I don't know if it's true, but she taking care of 2 grandkids, and she, want to eat fresh food. And I know that personally about her. So that means in the ways in which I'm going to interact on my city council, I'm bringing her story in mind. The federal government not bringing my story in mind, honey. But my city council person might be, right?
So thank you for that. Let me add something. So we talk about chess, not checkers. 2008, that night, Barack Obama, my God, most of us were crying, right? I know I was. I had my moment. And then it wasn't 2008 that really blew me away. It was 2012. Because when he won, that said, a black man can get elected twice. I mean, if you think about from his first term, the amount of hate, the amount of vitriol, the backlash politically down, I was, Lord, let this man get elected again. And then he got elected again, 2012. And my goodness, we partied, people have off Barack Obama. Well, while we was happy, there was a whole nother group of folk who were, I never forget, if you remember the election in 2012 tonight, who was like watching, I was up all night watching. Y'all watching that? Did you see, if you remember this moment, Karl Rove had a whole mental breakdown, live. You didn't see that, Alicia? When the numbers started coming in, Karl Rove was like, no, this can't be happening. Because they thought they had done enough to stop this black man. He literally, on live TV, had a whole meltdown. No exaggeration. Go look it up. Had a whole meltdown. And let me tell you the difference, though. Karl Rove had a meltdown, and some of Karl Rove people decided to have a meeting. I'm gonna give you 2 of these people who was part of the meeting. These 2 names that we don't talk about no more, but my God, did more to dismantle stuff in this country, the Koch brothers. The Koch brothers, I want you to hear what they decided. They said, look, of all the things we did, we can't believe this black man, they use another word, I'm trying not to use it, became president. And clearly, the federal level is out of the stopgaps we put in place to make sure this would never happen in this country have dissolved. So they came up with a new strategy, one that was brilliant and one that they could do right in front of our face and we wouldn't know. They said, we're gonna start pumping money into local races and we're gonna start controlling these state legislatures. They started funneling money into local state races so that even to this day, the majority of state houses in this country are Republican. They shifted it. I'm gonna give you an example. I lived in North Carolina. Anybody lived in North Carolina for any amount of time? North Carolina. I was in North Carolina in them days. We had a Democrat governor, got one now. But let me tell you what they did in North Carolina. We lived in North Carolina. They pumped in money into races that were close enough that could be won. Right? They were able quietly to flip the state house in North Carolina Republican. You remember when they had, because we love this stuff, and I'm not being super hypercritical, but we love this stuff. You know, in North Carolina one time we had Moral Mondays, remember? Where people was going down getting arrested around voting and stuff like that. Now it could be construed, Alicia, that me and Maurice was hating because we was having serious conversations about how this was foolish. People was leaving New York, going down to North Carolina to be arrested. Moral Mondays, they would come all over the country, be arrested. And we was like, okay. And the reason why I thought it was ridiculous, personally, I'm gonna use that language, and it's harsh, but it's harsh, but I'm gonna say it, is because they had already done the work to flip the state house. They had a Republican governor, Republican state house. I don't care if 50 million folk would have got arrested. When that legislation to change the voting, North Carolina came, you know what happened? Would all the people get arrested? The governor signed it. Why? Because no matter how many people he could look out, the state got getting arrested, he had the state legislature. And so what they start doing in places around the country, when they start pumping money into these local races to flip the state houses Republican, then you started hearing these other things that started happening we weren't paying attention to. We thought they were talking about a person. Who gerrymander? Who gerrymander? What? Who Jerry? He live all over the country. They started gerrymandering. They started now shifting districts so they could never be Democrat again. They started, instead of people choosing the district was now choosing the people. And they did this across the country. And when you follow in politics, as they always say, follow the money was going into state races. Boom, boom. So now, hit 16, you got this happening in states, and then you get Trump in office, and as Dr. Marie said, there's an opportunity seen by many. The same people, you ever wonder why the same people who talked about Trump bad are his greatest defenders? You say they playing him. Well, yeah, that's true. They playing him well. You know how they play him? They play him so well that Roe versus Wade got overturned. That's how well they playing him. Because they saw an opportunity to push their agenda, right, by the commander-in-chief, who is the greatest distraction for real plots. We sitting around here before he racist. How many times you got to say he racist before you know he racist? But while we sit and focus on the fact, well, he said this craziness, we said underneath. While we were up here mad and hollering, I can't believe he said that, I can't believe he did this and that. And underneath here, federal judiciary started changing. Supreme Court changed. Everything was happening. And while we up here fighting on this, notice I'm using them here intentionally, this very superficial level, beneath, the entire tide. It wasn't even a sneak. Because when you know you really believe you got the power, you ain't got to sneak no more. You can say foolishness from the mouth and people will go for it because that's what's happening now. So we missed the moves that were being made on state levels, right? And they were pumping money in the races. See, we think it's an accident in this state that certain Democratic seats flip Republican? In New York? This is intentional. The monies that were being pumped into these districts, they are studying. If they lost a race by a few percentage points, they've already determined the amount of money it takes to pump into said district to flip those points back. That's what they're doing. They've been doing this. While we sit here and talking about, hey, I can't believe they put that racist. Yeah, well, when you stand outside of it and critique it, but don't engage it, it happens and it impacts us on the ground. That famous line that Revelation Daniel Patrick Moynihan, all politics are local. That is the truth. That is the truth. And if you check out the local elections, can you imagine in Harlem, 500,000 people, and in this district, you can get in the city council with 9,000 votes. I'm not making this up. That in this district, you can get in the city with 9,000 plus votes, city council, because we disengage. That's the tragedy of this. So when we talk about engaging politics and engaging and being empowered, that line, I remember we were having a conversation, Pastor Des talked about on that shirt, the voice of the empowered. Capitalism got me, y'all, I ain't gonna lie, sometimes. Here I go, look, see if you can copyright that because I think we can make some money off that. She started researching me, like, nah, it ain't ours. But the voice of the empowered, not empowered through the voice, that means the assumption is that you're already empowered, but you ain't using your voice. And that vote is the voice. You see what I'm saying? And again, it is not just presidential. But we got to understand the move, but we don't, but we in an age, let me tell you what we got working against us. We in an age where folk don't read. We're in an age where if it take longer than 3 minutes, I ain't doing it. I got professors in here. You know how hard it is to get students to read the whole book? In college. We saw a cultural change in how we engage in information right before us. I ain't talking about just digital. Now I got to coax people into reading. You get an article, 3-minute read. 5-minute read. You got to actually tell somebody how much time they got to take from their day to read this article, and it better not be more than 4 minutes. That's why sound bites work so well. Even the sound bites are ridiculous. I'm going to say that again. Even when the sound bites are ridiculous, you could run with a one-line lie than a half-page truth. That's where we at. This is what's going on. Conspiracy theories, a whole lot of us 20 years ago that laughed at some of the stuff we hear being said now. Oh, this is ridiculous. Now we sitting there tomorrow, wait a minute. Ronald Reagan brought heroin into the hood? In 1980? Because you know what it tells me, and I'm going to pause and raise another question for y'all. But you know what it tells me, though? When you see many people first approach conspiracy theories like it's religion, but it tells me people do want access to information and knowledge. They just want it delivered quickly in a way they can easily repeat it. They do want knowledge, especially if it sounds like something outside of the realm of traditionally accessed information. Because all you got to do is really say things with conviction in the video and people think it's the gospel. Conviction with some music. And God forbid you start putting a little two-step on it. You know what I'm saying? Then we be like, ooh. Right? That's where we are. That's why this age is so strange to me. I often I'm like, bro, I don't know. This age is baffling to me. Like, it's baffling to me. There was a time historically we could actually sit around and say, okay, these are facts. Okay, you can't, these are facts. Truth is relative, but these are facts. Now it's like facts are relative. You can actually say something that's absolutely not true. If you say it strong enough and loud enough, people are like, well, you know what? I mean, one of these candidates is great at that. The master at that. Will boldface and say stuff that we know ain't true. But you know, you listen to somebody say something that's a lie, and they say so confidently and so casually, you start saying, wait a minute, let me go check this, because I thought, because he said some stuff sometimes that I knew was a lie. I was like, wait a minute, because he's saying this in such an easy way, like, bro, like, my man said, and I'll leave and jump in. I got to drop this one. He said, like a week and a half ago, he talked about immigration. And you know, people want to cheer him on. We want to deport everybody. And they bring criminals into this country. The same thing he did back in 16. Rapists, and this was the line. This was the moment, Maurice. He said that, watch this. This is no lie. This is the truth. Because I got to say that because I actually care about what comes out of my mouth. But this is not a lie. He said, you know, let me look at Rihanna. I'm going to be fake. He said that they're busing people here from Venezuela. I said, brother, is that the mega?
It's the magic school bus.
From Venezuela? We busing people from Venezuela? He said they bring them in on buses from Venezuela. I was like, wait a minute. Let me tell you, I know where Venezuela is. I know where it is on the map. But that man had me going to check. Wait a minute, I know ain't nobody get on no bus from Venezuela talking about. And when he said, people like, yeah, brother. And he said it so matter-of-factly. And they're busing people in here, criminals from Venezuela. On a bus? From Venezuela? Somebody ain't looking at this map. Oh no, not the eating the cats and dogs. Lord have mercy. Because now you got to contend with something else. And I want you all to respond to this. Now you got to contend with something else we never had to deal with in history. In an election. Right? The role of AI in generating photos. They had a video that went viral, a picture that went viral after the hurricane in North Carolina. A little girl in the boat with her pet dog crying, only to find out it wasn't real. So how do we deal with knowledge and gathering information to make these informed decisions in the midst of artificial intelligence?
Well, you know, the only thing that's worse than a man who is willing to tell you a lie baldly is the reaction of the supporters who also know where Venezuela is.
But still cheering it.
Not just cheering it, explaining it away.
Yes.
They will, it's an industry where lies get affirmed and dignified. That's the thing. Yeah. Where lies that used to be just laughed off and dismissed now get dignified by people wearing suits and ties under lights, getting paid a lot of money to be journalists. So there's that. AI is a whole other thing. Let me say this about AI, because it's one of the things I don't think many people understand. That artificial intelligence doesn't come out of the sky. It is a technology that instantaneously reads everything on the internet and comes to a conclusion based on volumes and volumes and volumes of text that it is able to read in virtually an instant. So that AI relies on the lies too. If there are enough lies online, AI will pick it up and represent the lie as if it were true. So the internet is a battleground of ideas. It's full of truth and lies. And it's becoming ever more difficult for us to tell the difference, because people assume that AI is neutral, that AI doesn't have any ideological or political interests of its own. That's not true. There you go, garbage in, garbage out, right? So, so AI is relying on human contributions, posts on the internet that any one of us could put there on our own blog page, create our own website. It's not to say that AI is necessarily going to lie, but AI is going to evaluate how many and the quality of posts about a particular subject. And then when you ask AI the question, it's going to spit out something that tries to synthesize and distill the thousands, the millions and millions of posts that it has to read. And I should also mention, few people are aware of this, that because AI does this, there are companies that don't want AI to reproduce what they know to be racist or prejudiced information. So the companies hire, subcontract people to scrub the internet, to clean it up, so that when AI does its work, it's relying on clean information. You might be surprised, you might not be surprised to know that the people who are doing the cleaning up are black and brown people from Asia and Africa, who, in the process of scrubbing the internet, are having to see and confront and deal with anti-blackness that is so violent and so dehumanizing that it risks those workers being triggered by their work. That's where we are with technology. Technology is not neutral. It is not neutral. I just think it's important for us not to be beholden to AI, to have a critical, intelligent position relative to AI. Most things you can probably trust to be close to the truth. But there are some things, I've had students turn in papers using artificial intelligence, and I knew they didn't read the book because AI got the plot wrong.
That part.
Yeah.
Let me add this, not just AI, but think about the man, the person who wants to be president of the United States, because I think you mentioned the whole Haitians eating cats and dogs, and when questioned, he said, well, that was reported. But my point is, you know that was him unleashed, because what he told you is, he's not fact-checking nothing. He said, well, it was reported, so that all of a sudden gave it clearance. Yeah, well, either way, it was reported. That's what he said. So the point is that you know that's not him being prepped. That's him unleashed reacting. Of course, because he can't help himself. He will say whatever it takes to get reaction. Let me pause here, and I want to see if there are any questions that we may have regarding anything, because I no matter what was covered or not covered, because this is such a critical season, and we got 2 weeks, and whatever those questions may be connected to this election, we got some great people here to answer any question we may have. Go ahead, Mary, get that mic. You could be the mic runner on that side, by the way. I just volunteered you. That's how I got you. I always get you that. Go ahead. Turn the mic on for a sec. Yep. Now, Mary been doing this for me.
Okay, so no, what you ain't gonna do. Not even playing. So now, what I'm having problems with though is you sharing and you're enlightening us and you're teaching us about the local votes and things like that. But what about the youth? Because this place should be to the brim with 18-year-olds. And I say that because just like when Pastor was a candidate, and I know that Charles Rangel was not feeling him. I saw that with my own eyes. And I say that because this is the time that we should be polishing our youth instead of trying to stay in until they have to put a mirror underneath our nostrils to see if we're still breathing.
Right.
And I'm not saying that someone in their 60s should not run, because I think that there's power, there's strength. I mean, we all have something to give. But we don't have any youth that's out here being polished for political reasons. And as you said, I'm not looking at myself. I have a 15-year-old, I have a 4-year-old, twins. and a 6-year-old. These are my grandkids. And I know I'm not going to be here long. So I'm just saying, if we're not showing them how to be, then we're really messed up. Like, this is awful. It's just awful. And it's going on and on and on. Yes, we are at the polls voting. But our children, they're not at the polls. I mean, we may see a large number now because of what's going on. And yes, AI is doing an amazing job on the internet. I mean, amazing, because some things I look at and I'm like, I have to go and fact check knowing damn well that this is not really going on. Like, but it's just crazy because no one is reading anymore. They're already destroying all our history books, and they're telling you to get over something that's still going on currently. So that's all I wanted to share. So I just want to know how do I go out, and I can't go verbatim from what I'm hearing because this is all knowledge, but to talk to some youth outside to encourage them to get out there and vote or go back to school or just pick up a book. Just pick up a book. You know, we can start with that.
Can I say, children are going to repeat what they see. So if we want them to pick up a book, we're gonna have to read. And we might wanna consider what it looks like to take our children to the polls, to see us participate in the democratic process. I think that is key. Pastor Mike and I have also had some conversations about the absence of conspicuous leadership training in our communities, in Black America. We just aren't seeing it. It's not conspicuous. It's not anywhere easily identified. I'm not saying it's not happening, but I'm saying that unlike my experience on college campuses where I know each summer there are right-wing conservative institutes that are recruiting students to become leaders, to become political leaders. They send them away for 6 weeks out of the summer, pay for it all, train them. So what's the Miller brothers? The Miller, what's his name? He was a student.
Yes, I know you're talking.
Yeah.
Who's behind some of these potential lawsuits and
Yes.
stuff?
Yes. They participate in these things. So if we're going to play chess, we're going to have to think about how we direct our community resources. What kinds of training, development, let's call it that, development of leaders, young people, to carry on some of this work. So it happens both at the individual level, all of us, encouraging our young people, our young adults, to get engaged, and as a community, locally and nationally, we ought to be able to identify where the next generation of Black leadership is being cultivated.
Thank you for that. Ed, a question? Go ahead.
Okay. I have a question and also a comment based off what you said because me personally, I recently activated my political consciousness when it comes to voting. In the past, I wasn't the most active around it, but I realized the importance of it, and I'm very convinced and convicted to exercise my right. And I'm young as well, so it's like
excellent.
I didn't really do so. It kind of speaks to what you just said. But my question really is, I really believe that the power is in the local elections, but you don't really see how to get involved in that. You don't see where to go, where's your town hall meeting, who's running. You might see a sign on the side of the road. Where would you recommend is the best place to get involved in local politics? Because that's where your vote means the most, in my opinion.
That's a great question, and congratulations to you to being more civically engaged. Let's give this man a round of applause. Cheering for the children. I want to push back about not knowing where and how to get involved, because we live in a social media world.
Right.
Almost every community board is on Instagram, right? Most city council people have a newsletter. I get a newsletter from city council people in Brooklyn and Queens, right? And so I think, especially as young folks, or any people who are engaged on social media, it's also about using it as a tool. Right? We have a lot of things to say about AI and, in social media and how it has gotten us in this kind of like isolated box. But when we use it for a tool for good, when we use it for a tool for liberation, when we use it for a tool for information gathering, so that's my pushback and my offer to you is that whether it's here in Harlem or if it's state, literally almost every agency has some kind of social media presence. I would also encourage you to go to their website and sign up for newsletters. They have staffers, and that's all they do is compile information and they send it out in an email. And so I know it almost feels like, oh, that's a little antiquated, but I think that's the way in which we flip the tools, right? I would also encourage you have a group of friends, comrades, who you have direct influence with and a part of. And I think one of the things that we often miss about local elections is that we try to pull community members out of the community to come to a place in which we learn about what we're doing and what we need to do. And I'm always saying, like, you gotta meet people where they are. Right? And so if you know that your rhythm of you and your friend's life is that you come to church on Sunday and you go to Boulevard right after, that's what I do. But to say like, oh, every third Sunday when we go to Boulevard, we actually gonna bring up this particular issue, right? Or we're gonna talk about this particular thing, or we're gonna think about what our voting plan is. Right? We're gonna say this Sunday, on the 3rd, when we do Voter Sunday, we're gonna say, hey, we actually gonna go to Boulevard between cocktails and talk about what's our voting plan for Tuesday. I know you don't get off work till 6. I know you got a kid you need to pick up from daycare, or I know you got class over at NYU. How do we make sure that me and my homies and my homegirls and my folks have a way to do this? So that's my offering to you, is to also say, like, where are the places in which you and your friends are already gathering, and how do you turn those gatherings into opportunities to actually do whatever it is that you're most passionate about in community?
Thank you. Let me add to that. All elected officials have constituent services, all right, from your city council, anyone. And what they're not used to, how do I frame this? Let me back up before I get to that. There is some real, and brother, if you don't mind, how old are you? Okay. There is some real intentionality in our country behind distracting young people from engagement. In this country, any major social movement has been led by young people. They realize that, right? When you go back to the 60s, whether it was the women's liberation movement, civil rights movement, the gay liberation movement, young people. There was a literal assassination of like Fred Hampton. He was 21, bro. A 21-year-old young black man was such a threat that they had to literally assassinate him, right? And if you understand why and what he was doing, you understand the key to his power. Because one of the things Fred Hampton was doing was realizing if we organize among ourselves, limited power. But if we organize among people who don't anticipate this young black man coming to organize, expansion of power. So Fred Hampton is going to poor whites in the country, Native Americans, Latinos, and he's saying, white power, this is deep. White power to white people, black power to black people, yellow power to yellow people, red power to red people, all power to all people. right? He understood that if you can become a threat, you don't become a threat when you're only parochial. You expand the connection. Young people are leading these movements. The sit-in movement, that wasn't 30 and 40-year-olds. These were young people, these were kids. The civil rights movement, all those young people you see being arrested and they marching and singing into the doggone police buses. These are young people, right? But then what they said, and I say they, the collective they, said that the 1960s was a time of too much democracy in this country. Too much democracy. We got to kill that much democracy. We like democracy, we don't like that much democracy. We don't like it that much. We like it, but we don't like it. We like the access points, the exclusive access points created by the facade of democracy. We don't really like a lot of democracy. We don't want you really taking the Constitution seriously. We don't want you really taking power seriously. So after the 60s, they start pouring money these days, what I like, who Noam Chomsky called the masters of mankind. Started pumping money into ways that we could distract people like you. They started building after the 60s. For those of you who are old enough to know, all of a sudden you see the building and the expansion of malls. Marketing departments expanded 1,000%. Because they decided that this was going to be the tool to distract from democracy. And it has worked to this day. And social media has become another tool of distraction to prevent us from engaging democracy. In order to really look for a democratic country and make this a real democratic republic, we got to have we have to mount a rebellion against the mechanisms of distraction. It can't just be, I'm fighting against Trump, or on this side, I'm fighting against Harris. You have to mount an attack against the mechanisms of distraction. Because this move right here, this scrolling move that you're doing right here, for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, tool of distraction. Going shopping is a tool of distraction. That's why the malls were built in the 70s, big. Because now all of a sudden, instead of sitting around watching the news and learning what was going on in that time, because the news was more focused on journalism, you was like, let's go shopping. All of a sudden, shopping in the malls became a way to undermine democracy. We didn't even see it. You thought they were really interested in what was the brand of jeans on you. They were what is called the manufacturing of need. That's what marketing is, the manufacturing of need. Create a need and then create it in such a psychological way that you feel you actually need the thing. So now, here you go. Look what happens. Go through all this. You go, I saw people do this. You go to a march, 2020. We protested all over the country. Left a march and went shopping. Left the march and went online for the new Nikes that came out. Didn't even understand how you were undermining your marching. Right? During the pandemic, the man who was the head of LVMH became the richest person. Why? Because folks was getting their little stimulus checks and going to Louis Vuitton and getting their bags. And all of a sudden, we was like, whoa. And you think people talking about Trump gonna give you money because you want to put it in a fund for your children for the future? No, they want that money so they go shopping. Right? And now it's so good that they distracted you in your own home. There you go. You ain't got to leave home now. You can participate in intentional distraction from the comfort of your own home. And it come right, you ain't got to leave a place. And God forbid, because it was comfort food, now it's comfort shopping. But my point is, watch this, and this is a pushback moment. You can sit right now, before you had to go to the library, you had to go to some community board, you can sit right now and figure out who is the city council person for my district. You don't even got to write it if you can't, you just ask it. Then, where are their constituent offices for the city council person from this district? You can just ask it. Boom. And then here's the real part that we don't like, though. Here comes the part. Walk into their office and be like, you know, I really want to get involved with local politics, what you do. See how they react. After they get over shock that somebody actually asks how I get involved, because there used to be people calling or emailing and not showing up. But wait a minute, I'm sorry. Showing up what actually means social engagement and moment where social deprivation is real because we sit here like this all day and not talking to nobody. Everything is designed to minimize human engagement, which is connected to the expansion of knowledge. Everything is designed to make you spend a dollar, but also to not engage, but also because of this big word, here it is, ready for this big word? Neuroplasticity. They know now your brains are being rewired through your addiction to social media. So it's being so rewired that you don't want to read no more. If I can't get in a handful of characters, I can read while I'm scrolling, I can catch just 3 sentences and move on. Now, the whole institution of distraction is real. And it's designed not to attack me and my 53-year-old self. It's designed to make sure that you don't mount an attack and one day wake up and realize that you thought you were just going shopping, not participating in your own psychological oppression. Designed to make you think that you're actually keeping up with an idea that's an illusion about what it means to look wealthy but be broke. I mean, you go on and on. And you sitting there being motivated because somebody posted a video fresh out the store with their Gucci and their Louis. And you're like, I got to get that because why? Because somebody manufactured a need and said, when you got this, somehow you got value. I mean, I go on and on how this is happening. So it ain't just about voting in this election. It's about opening our eyes to seeing the intentionality behind tools and weapons of mass distraction that are stopping us and stopping you in particular from because they know this. Look at those protests that were taking place in 2020. There weren't people like me. They were young folk. Online. It was absolutely organized online. So we already expect there's good and bad. The problem is you can't organize consistent engagement online. Because when you show up one time, you think you did it. But see, if you know history, which they don't want you to know, you realize that you can't change it with one-offs. One-offs don't change nothing. If I show up, it's intent. Because here's the other part. Because everything come like this, you think change come like that politically too. You think because you can get online, order Amazon, and show up the next day, especially if you're a Prime member, without no additional fees. And you think that the politics, education, everything's supposed to be the same way. So now you lose patience with the process. You give more patience to buying a pair of shoes than trying to decide who you're going to vote on. That is intentional. There's an intentionality behind creating this culture that we're in right now. And you want to hear a conspiracy, that's the conspiracy. But whether or not Reagan brought heroin in the 1980s ain't really the conspiracy. Conspiracy is how we sitting around here and give more time to things that do not pour back into us, that deplete us psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually. And then wonder why we have the highest rates of depression and anxiety among our young people. Well, that ain't a problem, because, you know, my son and I are friends. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, it's real. No, that's real. But it ain't even see, here's the thing. I'm going to say it because, boy, I was getting on my little soapbox. I've been on here. I'm going to get off it. But you know I can't stand to hear? One of the things, you hear people say this, well, you know what it is? It's the fracture in the family. And if we got too many single parents, like single parent is a 21st century phenomenon. Wait a minute. This been happening. How all of a sudden it's the problem? If we fix the family, we all right. It's too much Wait, hold on. On white, black, Latin, it's been single parents. Many of us in here were raised 40 years ago, 50 years ago by single mothers. This ain't a new phenomenon. So it becomes an easy way, again, to distract you from some of the real issues. And we walk around here talking about in the church. You see what it is, church? If we didn't have this fracture in the family, we'd be all right. And then you got these lunatics out here standing in places like this telling you, don't give to poor people because you get nothing back. Because, at least, they may bless, you may benefit them, but you get nothing back. And you got lunatics, you got white folk in blackface. No, I'm kidding. Black folk in blackface.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I meant to say it that way. Who's sitting around here talking about, well, the reason why Haiti's so poor is because some Africans brought voodoo to the island. Like, this is insane.
Yeah, that's crazy.
There are people, and then here we go. When they say that, people in the congregation, oh, that's right, Pastor. That's right, Pastor. You applauding someone who is spewing self-hate? This thing is infuriating to me. I'm not even gonna lie. Because we sit here and we have conversations among ourselves. You know how bad it is when you get to the point when you be like, you know what, man, I just want to stop. Because it's too much. It's just too much. And then we sit around making choices that we uninformed. But anyway, my sister here and then back over here. Right here.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name
hold
is
on,
Cece. Oh,
Go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
okay. Thank
Say
you
your,
all.
say your name again, I missed it. I'm sorry.
Cece.
All right,
Hello,
Cece.
everybody. Hi. Thank you all for what you shared today. So, Pastor Mike, I heard you earlier talk about silence and disempowered voices with your team. I'm 22 years old, and I can now vote. Prior to that, I was an immigrant. I was not able to vote. I'm a naturalized citizen now.
Good.
When we talk about silenced voices, I think something that is avoided in our community, please correct me if I'm wrong, is how often, because of the environment effect, we have internalized that voice. And sometimes we start to feel hopeless. We start to internalize that hate, that anti-blackness, that discrimination. I've spoken to other women, and they will not vote for, let's say, Kamala. And what I've noticed is that in a lot of their explanations is a lot of projection. They started believing everything that people told us about what we are and what we're not. And now they start treating other people and themselves that way. So when it comes to feeling disempowered, when it comes to feeling silenced, and letting that affect your day-to-day and the way that you choose to support not yourself, but other people, what do you have to say to those people that unconsciously feel silenced, unconsciously have that low self-esteem, and now they have let that affect their entire lives?
That's a good question. So there's several things I would say, and I'm going to kind of take this kind of, I don't want to say historical approach, but I have to say it this way. Dr. Marie said something earlier about Bill Lynch, right? And how he believed in me, right? Just hold that thought for a second. He believed in me. Then let's jump over to Florida for a second. And this kind of erasure of history by saying that these books cannot be taught. Then jump over here for a second and see the intentional attempt to minimize the impact of your vote. All right? So, all right, Cece, stay right there. I'm gonna look at the second and third things, right? This kind of, this erasure of your vote, this kind of, well, I'll pause, I'll say it like this. Anything, I'm gonna use fighting. I've used this analogy tons of times. If I'm preparing to fight Ellis, right? Stand up, Ellis. I like these. Don't swing, because I might have to swing. I don't want to start fighting. All right? So if Ellis and I, Cece, are getting ready to fight, and I'm training to prepare, right, for Ellis, my focus in my training is to see what I can do. So let's say Ellis got a killer right hook. He got a killer right hook. Now I've seen that if Ellis connect with this right hook, I'm toast. I seen the tape. He catch you with this right hook, it's lights out. All right? So in my preparation for this fight, I want to study and neutralize his strength. I'm looking at how my whole training, I've gotten ready. I seen he got a pretty good jab, but it's that right hook. So what I want to do in my preparation for defense, how do I need to position myself? How does my footwork need to be? What do I need to make sure I don't do to lean into that right? Everything is trying to neutralize his strength. Now, Ellis is the fighter. He now knows this is his strength. In his camp, they prepare him what? To counter or to know they're going to try to kill my right hook. So now I got to use this left in a way to distract you away and do it enough to make you refocus, to make me refocus my game plan that came in now to deal with the right. What I didn't anticipate is that while he was training, he working on a left uppercut. So I'm sitting here focused on the strength. Ellis says, oh, I know what my strength is, but let me work on his left uppercut when he tries to cancel when I try to cancel his strength, all right? Now, a fight to beat Ellis. Now, here it is. If I watched tape and saw Ellis throw a right that was a haymaker, I'm not really worried about the fluke of his right. Get this. If he just came in, every now and again, he threw this punch 100 times, and out of 100 times, it landed maybe once, right? Then, in that moment, that's not really his strength. My people don't understand what our strength is. They are intentionally trying to neutralize our strength, but then tell you it's a weakness. So you sitting up here don't realize that your knowledge of history is a strength. They don't attack a weakness, they attack a strength. They trying to stop you from voting. Why? Because it's your weakness? No, it's a strength. So the problem is we got a strength and believe that it's a weakness. Because if we knew it was a strength, we'd be fighting to stay strong instead of surrendering it. Why do I say all that? A lot of our folk don't understand that our history is one a strength. When I hear you say that, one, as a father, and it's crazy that you say what I'm about to say, that both my children are older than you. That's scary to me. Like, both of my children in their 30s. My God. But I want to talk to young people more, and I do. Because when they got us thinking that our history is unimportant, they have neutralized our strength. So your sisters, and where are you from, by the way, Cece? Yeah, so your strength is part of understanding your history. And now in this culture, tragically, when most see you, you're a sister of color. There's a history connected to that and connected to you and your people, right? That nobody wants you to understand. When I sit there and I talk to a young person and help them understand the historical context in which they live now and why they're trying to neutralize their strength, because they don't want you to understand how Fannie Lou Hamer did it. They don't want you to know how Cesar Chavez did it. They don't want you to know this, because here it is. The past influences how you look at this moment. So the reason why I still fight and the reason why I'm passionate is because I have a historical context of my fight. And I got to think of all the people who went through worse than being bullied on social media. If the worst is somebody talking about me on social media, then that ain't nothing. Because the worst for my history is women being raped and men being lynched because they carried a book. And they didn't want you to read. You understand the people who are sitting here trying to kill history, the same people who during slavery didn't want you to read? The same people. And then they also understand that if you understand the activation in your vote, Music to their ears is to hear a young woman of color say, you know, my vote ain't gonna mean nothing. They like mission accomplished. Because now she's gonna do the work of neutralizing her own strength. This is what's happening. So what you talking about, who internalize it, it's hard to internalize false narratives that feed into insecurity when you know the history connected to your strength, not your weakness. That's it. And as long as you are not invested in learning it, we had a whole meeting last night about November 5th. One of the things we're gonna open up, I'm gonna tell you with it, one of the things we're gonna open with on November 5th is this video to give context to why we're doing what we're doing, to give historical context to it. Because a lot of our people just don't know it. Can you imagine there are young people, and we take this for granted, and I know there are young people right now who can't tell you who Malcolm X was. Have no clue. It ain't like he was around 100 years ago. You mean the school? No, the person. This is intentional. And all you gotta do is have a conversation. Why are they trying to kill our history? Why are they trying to stop me from learning? Why are they trying to minimize my expansion? Why they don't want me to vote? Why is it voting doesn't matter, but they're going through such means to stop my vote? They are telling you right now that's your strength. Just like if I sit there and train for his right hook, I know his right hook is his strength. And once he knows it, and he knows that I'm getting ready for it, he develops strategy to knock me out. We ain't developing a strategy to knock these folk out yet. Because we don't know that this right hook is dangerous. And that right hook got a name, it's called history. That right hook got a name, it's called voting. That right hook has a name. That means one that's being desensitized to the nature of materialism and consumerism in this country so you can rebel against the insanity of fascism. That's what's happening. So when I hear young people, first of all, when I see young people like y'all in TNT tonight, well, my soul rejoices. And when I see the young people coming here on Sundays, my soul rejoices. Because you, especially you, they scared of. Especially you. Because watch this. It ain't just you, CC. It's CC, the now naturalized citizen. Because, can I help you? You think it's by accident they focusing on immigrants? Because they've already done the research. That the immigrants, when they come here, are gonna align themselves ideologically with a particular political. They know that if we let in 10,000 immigrants with the potential, the pathway to citizenship, that the 10,000, 7,500 gonna be Democrat. That's the expansion. And then, God forbid, the colorizing of America, or the browning of America. I say colorizing too because it's a little bit deeper than just browning. That they're afraid of. You become a problem. Because you came here and got your citizenship and you sitting in this church. That's a problem for some people. That's a big problem. So you the threat, you ain't even know it. Listen, I'm a threat, but I'm too late. They said, look, he old, but I'm a threat. You know why I'm a threat? Because I'm an anchor baby. My mama got citizenship because I was born here. So I'm problematic to them too. You understand? And knowing your I know it sounds corny for some of our people, but knowing your history is one of the most dangerous things in this country. And for you, it's more dangerous. You know why? Because to get your citizenship, you had to do what many people don't do. That's study some things about this country. And that's dangerous too. You understand? And they love it when you got a generation of young people like, slavery, that was so old. Man, they love that. Because now you give them a pass. Well, you're right, that was kind of old. It's old? Man, it's living in my bones. That ain't old, that's living in my bones. That's living in my bones. See, we talk about generational trauma, but we forget to talk about generational strength. You understand? So what they do, let me tell you what some folk do to play the trick on you. Who don't, if you don't come in, well, here's what they trick. Here's what they do. CC, you actually one of us. Because on the other side of that island are the darker folk. And them ones right there, you gotta know that you're a little bit better than them. They create a narrative to make you think that somehow, because the folk on the other side of the island a little bit darker, that you got an advantage. Now, they're doing that to actually lull you to sleep, to think that we're going to give you an opportunity because you ain't like the other people on the other side of that island. Because that's what they got. And then you come here thinking, oh, yes, I am a little bit better. And in this country, the ideology of whiteness is a path to success. So they tell us. Until they come to you and say, wait a minute, sister, I know you like this job, but you need to straighten out your hair because your hair don't fit the profile. I mean, I go on and on and on and on the psychological mind tricks they play on us to make us start hating ourselves. They've been doing it. This ain't new. This ain't new. So your very being here tonight is rebelling against that narrative. You becoming a citizen is rebellion. You are a terror to some folk. There are some white spaces that fear you and don't even know you because you represent something that they're afraid of. The possibility that you can come here from another country and get access to the things that they got but don't take for granted or don't take advantage of. You a problem. Not just you, this sister right here, these two young, they problems too. So we got to kill them, or we got to kill their fighting spirit early. Girl, go ahead and get that bag. They know what they're doing. When the people who create this technology say they don't let their children do it or use it, that's a sign. You're going to create something, unleash this to the world to kill our kids emotionally, psychologically, but don't let your kids have it? Man, listen, this is my soapbox. We talk, listen, me and his brother been talking about this for 30 years. I love the fact we still got passion for it. Because this stuff could kill you. Because this stuff will make you, let me tell you, because this ain't a joke. There are a whole lot of people, depending on what happens November 7th or 8th, I say that because that's probably going to find out. There are folks who are ready to take their bags and get up out of this place because of the terror that's going to be unleashed. And that's not an understatement. Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's not an overstatement. That may be an understatement. The terror that will be unleashed. That's what this is about. This is a fight for what this future in this country will look like for your children and the opportunities for your children. That's why we're here talking about this tonight on November 5th, because it ain't just about the election, it's beyond. Because depending on how this thing turns out, I'm gonna tell you right now, I still got some fight left. And depending on if this thing turns the wrong way, I'm going to employ a different kind of power and strength in this joint, because I'm not even joking. This is terrifying for me, and it's a different fight now. I got a little granddaughter, and I don't want her growing up I want her growing up in a world where she got real opportunity. I want her to understand a real opportunity. Instead of these people around here, and I'll stop here because Can I say this? No, this is what I want to say. This is an argument that I just don't understand why we don't use, right? There are people, I'm going to take this women's abortion. And the fight now is what? You got men legislating, for the most part, what women should do with their bodies. It's deplorable, right? Because they believe that government has a right to tell a woman what she can't do with her body. What blows my mind is that some of the same people who believe they have a right to kill your right, because they have a right to tell you what you can do about it, were the same people during the pandemic who said the government don't have a right to make me get vaccinated. You can't tell me what to do with my body. And then they turn around and then tell a woman what to do with hers. Call that to the table. That's gross hypocrisy. And they think that's okay. And I asked them the other night, have you seen that PBS special on women's suffrage movement? Right? The same people who don't believe, who want to control women's reproductive rights, are the same people who at the turn of the century didn't believe women could vote. Same kind of people, same kind of spirit. You got to call this to the table. Because my God, if we wake up one morning and see what's happening, we're going to have to resurrect the spirit of Fred Hampton and Fannie Lou and Diane Nash and John Lewis. I ain't playing. We got to resurrect a different kind of power in this country that's been laying dormant for a long time, and a Charles Powell and other folk who sat there in the 50s and 60s and fought for us to sit here and now throw it away because we say, I don't really like Kamala. And throw it away and watch a reversal back to a time that many of you, your age, don't know because they ain't read it. They don't understand the dangers in going back to that moment. And what the architects of this foolishness behind Donald Trump want to see done. This is deep. This is so, I don't like even using this word. This is a scary moment. This is a really scary moment. Like a man can actually say these things he wants to do and nobody's looking at him like he's a lunatic. There are people who actually believe, you know what, I think you're right. We should do that. This is deep. I've never seen anything like this. I never thought I would live long to see a day when I said, you know what, George Bush wasn't really that bad.
Right, right.
Like, think about that. You know, Bush wasn't really, you know, when you think about it, I mean, all things being equal, as a Republican, Bush wasn't really that bad. Because there was a word that, I mean, they did something, but my God. Because I'm going to tell you this, you ain't never going to see Donald Trump closing up with Michelle Obama. But Michelle and George, they homies now. Because, yeah, we had political differences, but this level of inhumanity and this blatant lack of decency, this I feel like it's 1958. It ain't morning in America, it's nighttime in America. This is scary, man. I'm gonna let, I get too heated about this. That's why I like when I'm moderating when we sit on the stage better because I can keep my peace. But I want to get Reverend Alicia, Dr. Maurice have the last words tonight as we get out of here. So just close us out with some good words. He said we ain't got none.
I think one thing needs emphasis, and that is we're not only voting for ourselves. If you meet someone disengaged, disillusioned with this process, I don't really think I want to encourage you to, or maybe I do, fight them over it. But maybe we ask those who feel a little disengaged and disillusioned to consider voting for someone other than their own self-interests. Call their children and their children's children, because I think it's absolutely right that what we are being called upon to do is to have an active role in our collective destiny like we have never had before, certainly in modern times, in modern years. So that's the challenge I want you to take to others who think that voting won't mean any difference. It may not, nothing may change tomorrow, but change takes time, and time keeps moving, and it's gonna move in one direction or another. If I can help it, I want it to move in the direction that allows for my children and my children's children to flourish. And you should too.
Let's just remember the people who fought to overturn Roe versus Wade fought for 50 years. And each of them will tell you now that 50-year wait was worth it. Was worth it. Was all worth it. They done forgot about the 50 years now. It was worth it because of this new reality we're in. So, man, let's thank Reverend Alicia, Dr. Maurice. And on November 5th, I want us to fill this place because we have some good things in store for that night for you. Not just us talking, there's a few things. We got guests coming in. It's going to be great, and I think it's going to lead to a lot of fruitful public conversation. Remember, this right here what we're doing is historic role of the black church. This is what the black church did. This is the kind of stuff we did, and we got to reclaim this space. And I hope we can reclaim it across, and it's not too late, but we can do it. So, all right, let's just stand. I'm asking Reverend Alicia to pray us out. And thank y'all for staying here tonight. I told you, Maurice, they used to being here till 10 o'clock and stuff like that.
God, we just thank you. We thank you. We thank you for the opportunity to spend some time and conversation with one another, remembering the ways in which you have brought us this far. God, you have never left us nor forsaken us. You have given us the ability of our minds and our spirits and our will and our know-how and our history to change the landscape of the world before us.
Yeah.
God, we thank you that our history with you has shown us that we are equipped and ready and willing and able to change and transform the world around us. Thank you for the stories and the history that connect us by bone and by DNA and by origin, Lord God, that reminds us that we are capable, willing, able, that we have the know-how. It is in our bones. God, so we thank you that the seeds that we have sown in conversation, not only in this building, but online, God, that it goes forth, that we have the courage to take what we have heard tonight and plant that seed into the life of someone else. We thank you that though some of us are called to plant, some of us are called to water, whatever it is, God, we thank you that you give us the courage and the strength. We might not have all the right words. We might not know all the language, God, but we thank you for this newfound, this restored, this deep reminder from where the place from whence we have come. That we already have a proof point. We already have a map. We already have a North Star by which we can follow, God. And so we thank you that we remember who we are and whose we are. And for this, we will give you the glory, God. Let our homes be the way better than the ways that we left them. Let us get back home in one piece, God. We ask these things in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen, amen, and amen. Early voting starts Saturday. So make that a part of your plan if you want to early vote. Let's get some record early voting out.
Yes, yes.